Hi, welcome to point 3 of today's sermon. If you've not viewed the entire sermon, please go to kgbc.us/sermons and click on the entire message. But I would like to share with you the third point of that sermon titled Uncovering the Lies. In Colossians chapter 2, we identified first the lie that says this: some form of truth is always enough. We know that's a lie because everything that God's revealed to us has been revealed in Jesus. So there's only one truth. His name is Jesus. The second lie stated this: all major faith systems lead to God because they all have some element of truth. We know that that is also a lie. The Bible refers to this as vain philosophy that has no content about Jesus. Following those two lies, we continue to study the second chapter of Colossians and come to a third lie. It is there that I want to move and explain to you how we need to be careful of this lie. The third lie states this: our works earn favor with God. There are two sub-lies that Satan always gives us here. And this is what Satan likes to convince us of. With enough effort, you can do the law. With enough sin, you can undo the gospel. We know neither of those are true. But because the devil himself likes to trap us in lies, one of the lies he'll convince us of, if we let him, is this: our works will earn the favor of God. In Colossians chapter 2, verse 16, we read this warning from Paul: let no one act as your judge concerning food or drink or in respect to festivals, new moon or Sabbath days. These things are a mere shadow of what is to come, but the substance belongs to Christ. What was happening in the church in Colossae were false teachers that would promote religious activity as a way of having a right position with God. The reason the devil would like for us to believe that obeying the law can earn God's favor is because that approach takes our eyes off of what Jesus has accomplished on the cross. The devil wants us to believe that with enough effort we can do the law, and with enough sin we can undo or nullify the gospel. This is not the case. How did Paul allow or encourage the Colossian church to stand against this lie? The answer to that is found back in verse 13 through 15. The errors that we've discovered, first in verse 4, second in verse 8, and now in verse 16, always point back to the truth that was just given. And so now we know the reason for those truths. They combat these lies that can come against the enemy. So what was the truth Paul gave that will help us to combat this lie that our efforts can earn God's favor? Listen to verse 13 and following. You were once dead in your transgressions and in the uncircumcision of your flesh. God, through Jesus, made you alive together with Him, having forgiven all your sins, having canceled out the certificate of debt consisting of decrees against us, which was hostile to God. In an analogous way, Paul reminds us that because we can't keep the law perfectly, the law becomes like this document that condemns us because we fall way short of righteousness that God deserves. But Paul then says, this certificate-like accusation that reminds you that you can't be good enough because none of us can obey the law perfectly, this accusation Jesus nailed to the cross. Listen to this. He has taken that accusation, that certificate of debt is the analogy, and He has nailed those accusations to the cross, indicating that what Jesus accomplished on the cross allows us to have His righteousness covering us so that we're acceptable to God. There's nothing that I can do, religiously speaking, that would make Jesus love me more. There's nothing I can do in sin that would make Him love me less. Because of what He's done on the cross, and if we place our faith in Jesus, we have forgiveness of sin. God tells us that we can have the righteousness of Christ and be in fellowship with God, having a relationship with God that is free from distraction and obstacles, so that we can actually be in communion with God. This is an incredible announcement that flies in the face of this very dangerous lie that states our works can earn favor with God. This is the third and final lie that we see as a false area of influence noted in Colossians chapter 2. I'd like to close with this. The reason Paul wrote the letter to the church in Colossae was to encourage them against such lies. Paul had witnessed through a mutual friend, Epaphras, that the church in Colossae was doing well. They had a strength about them, spiritually speaking. Paul addressed this in chapter 1 when he scribed out a beautiful prayer. But following that prayer, Paul gave specific details about Jesus. Having given an incredible picture of the full truth of Jesus, Paul then applied that truth to the individual lives of the Colossian Christians, as noted in chapter 2. This application of the truth of Jesus helped them to stand against the lies of the devil that can oftentimes distract us from the truth. The Bible calls the devil the father of lies, meaning that he originated the idea of taking a truth of God and twisting it. He's the father of all lies. He's the liar, according to the Gospel of John, chapter 8. The way that we overcome his lies is not in our own strength. It's not in our own wisdom, not in our own knowledge. Those that were negatively influencing the congregation in Colossae were attempting to come up with a twisted truth with their own wisdom and their own experience. Now, that's not how we overcome the lies of the enemy. The way we overcome the lies of Satan in our lives is to cling to the truth of Christ. Not just a cerebral knowledge, but truly in our hearts, knowing and experiencing His love because we've surrendered our life to Him. If you've never placed your faith in Jesus Christ, I encourage you to do that. Confessing with your mouth and believing in your heart that Jesus is who He is allows us to know and to receive His forgiveness of sin and to have that new life and that change in our lives. Yes, one of the lies Satan gives us is that anybody can be a son or daughter of God because He created us. We know that's false. So don't believe it if you see it posted or tweeted. We know that's false. The only way that we can be a child of God, according to the truth, is to place our faith in Jesus Christ. I'm so glad to have this opportunity to share this final point, this final lie that can come against the church. Thank you for joining us for this wrap-up of today's sermon. Again, please visit the entire sermon if you'd like to review or listen to the first two lies that I've taught today. Thank you for always supporting and being a part of the teaching ministry at Kings Grant Baptist. God bless.